When I first moved into the house on Birch Hollow Road, I thought the quiet would be good for me. After years of city noise, endless sirens, and people constantly pressing in from all sides, the silence of a small suburban neighborhood felt like a relief. It was late September, that awkward in-between season where the leaves are starting to turn, but the nights haven't yet gone cold. I'd rented the place sight unseen, a little single-story house with a white fence and overgrown hedges. The rent was cheap, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions. The first few nights were peaceful. I worked from home, unpacked slowly, and spent my evenings sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, listening to the cicadas. Then, on the fifth night, I noticed it. A black cat sitting perfectly still at the edge of the yard. At first, I thought it belonged to someone nearby, maybe one of the neighbors. It didn't move, didn't make a sound, just stared straight at me with those reflective golden eyes. After a few minutes, it quietly walked away, disappearing into the bushes. I didn't think much of it. But the next night, it came back. Same time, around 11 p.m. Same spot, just beyond the reach of the porch light. Only this time, it didn't leave. It walked right up to the steps and sat there staring, not blinking, not meowing, just watching me. When I stood up, it backed away slightly, but didn't run. I tried to coax it closer, even poured a bit of milk into a bowl, thinking maybe it was a stray. It didn't drink. It just tilted its head, almost like it was studying me. After a few minutes, it turned and trotted around the side of the house, the direction of the backyard, and vanished. That's when I heard something strange. Scratching. It came from the back door. Light, rhythmic scratching, as if something was gently clawing the wood. When I went to look, there was nothing there. No cat, no paw prints, nothing. It kept happening for the next few nights. The cat would appear out front, then disappear, and moments later I'd hear scratching somewhere. The back door, the side window, even once under the floorboards near the crawlspace vent. I started losing sleep. On the 8th night, it changed. The scratching wasn't soft anymore. It was urgent, almost frantic, like something trying to dig its way inside. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, my heart pounding. The air was still, the yard quiet except for the faint hum of street lamps. And there it was, the cat, sitting directly on my doorstep. But something was wrong. Its fur was wet, matted in clumps, its ears looked torn, and its eyes reflected pure white in the light. No color, no warmth. I whispered, "Hey, are you hurt?" It didn't move, didn't blink. Then slowly, its head tilted, but too far, at an unnatural angle, like its neck had no bones. I stumbled backward, dropping the flashlight. When I picked it up again, the cat was gone. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I walked around the property, half expecting to find paw prints or maybe a dead animal. Instead, I found something that made my stomach twist. Tiny scratches carved into the wood of the back door. But they weren't random claw marks. They formed a pattern. 3 vertical lines, 1 horizontal, like a letter. An H. That day, I finally talked to my neighbor, an older woman named June who'd lived there for decades. When I mentioned the black cat, her expression changed. "You've seen her too?" she asked quietly. Her tone made me uneasy. "You mean that stray that hangs around here?" June shook her head slowly. "She's not a stray. She belonged to the woman who lived in your house before you. I felt my chest tighten. Before me? You mean the landlord? She hesitated. No, the one before him. The woman who, well, who died there. I froze. Died? Car accident, she said softly. It was raining. She swerved off the road just a mile from here. Her name was Helen. Sweet lady. Always kept that cat by her side. Wouldn't go anywhere without it. I felt my hairs on my neck rise. What happened to the cat? June's eyes flicked toward my house. No one ever found it. That night, I boarded up the crawl space vents, made sure all the windows were locked, and left the back light on. I tried to focus on work, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak in the floorboards made me jump. Around 11:30, I heard the scratching again. Not at the door this time, at the window, the one beside my bed. I didn't move. I just stared at the curtains, frozen, as the faint scraping sound continued, soft, deliberate, almost like someone tracing letters into the glass. Then it stopped, and from the other side of the curtain, I heard it meow. But it wasn't normal. It sounded distorted, almost like it was coming through water, low, echoing, drawn out. I slowly reached for the curtain and pulled it back. Nothing. The yard was empty, but on the outside of the glass, fogged from the cold, I could see what had been written in it, drawn by a paw or finger. Hello. I barely slept. By morning, I'd made up my mind to leave. I started packing right away, throwing clothes into boxes and not caring about order. At some point, I realized the front door was open, just a crack. I swear I'd locked it. I walked toward it slowly, heart hammering. The air in the house felt heavy, thick, almost humming. Then I saw it. The black cat sat in the doorway, perfectly still. Its fur was dry now, its eyes pale gold again. It looked at me, then down at something on the floor. There, between us, was a small silver locket. I recognized it immediately. It was the same locket June had shown me in a photo of Helen, the woman who died here. I kneeled down slowly, picked it up, and opened it. Inside was a photo of a smiling woman and the same black cat sitting on her lap. When I looked up again, the cat was gone. I left that day, didn't even ask for my deposit back. But sometimes, when I'm driving at night, I still catch glimpses of it in the rearview mirror. A black cat, sitting perfectly still at the edge of the road, watching me pass. And every time, my radio cuts to static. When I first moved into the Maple Grove apartments, I wasn't expecting much. It was cheap, a little run down, and had that faint smell of mildew that no amount of air freshener could hide. But I didn't have the money for anything better. It was a small, 3-story complex tucked between an old laundromat and a grocery store. The kind of place where you could live for years and never actually meet your neighbors. Except for the woman in 2B. Her name was Mrs. Grayson, and she was probably in her late 60s. She had a soft, tired voice, always wore the same faded floral housecoat, and smelled faintly of lavender and cigarette smoke. And she had a cat, a gray tabby named Oliver. Small, thin, with cloudy green eyes that always seemed to be watching you. I met them my first week there. I was coming back from the mailroom when suddenly Oliver appeared at my feet, rubbing against my leg and purring like we'd known each other for years. Mrs. Grayson shuffled out of her apartment a moment later, smiling weakly. "Looks like he likes you. He doesn't warm up to people much." I knelt down and scratched behind Oliver's ears. "He's sweet." She hesitated, like she wanted to say something else, then just nodded. "Be careful if he comes to your door at night. Sometimes he, wanders." I thought she was joking. The first few weeks were uneventful. I worked nights at a hospital, so I'd usually get home around 3 a.m. The building was quiet then, except for the occasional plumbing groan or humming light in the hallway. One night, I came home and found Oliver sitting outside my apartment door. He meowed softly, tail flicking. I crouched down and whispered, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing out here?" He just stared up at me. Then he walked to Mrs. Grayson's door, pawed at it once, and looked back at me. It was strange, almost like he wanted me to follow him. But I didn't. I figured Mrs. Grayson would find him in the morning. A few days later, I ran into her in the lobby. I asked if Oliver was okay, and she smiled politely. "He's fine, just old." Then she lowered her voice. "He doesn't like being alone at night." Something about the way she said it made me uneasy. I started noticing weird little things after that. When I passed her door late at night, I'd hear scratching, soft, rhythmic, coming from inside. Sometimes a faint thump, like furniture moving. Once I swear I heard whispering, but when I pressed my ear to the door, it went silent. A week later, it got worse. It was around 2:15 a.m. I'd just gotten home and was about to unlock my door when I saw Oliver again, sitting in the hallway. Only this time, he was staring at my neighbor's door, 2B, and hissing. His fur was puffed up, tail stiff, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Then came the sound. From inside her apartment, a single heavy thud, followed by silence. "Mrs. Grayson?" I called. No answer. I knocked. "Hey, it's your neighbor. Are you okay?" Still nothing. Then I noticed the smell. It was faint at first, sweet and sour like rotting fruit, but it was coming from the small gap beneath her door. I pulled out my phone and called the building manager. He showed up 10 minutes later, keys jangling, grumbling about late-night emergencies. When he opened the door, we both froze. The air that came out was heavy and wet. Inside, the lights were off, the curtains drawn. Mrs. Grayson was sitting in her recliner, or what was left of her. Her body was pale, sunken, eyes open and glassy. She'd been dead for days. The coroner said heart failure. They took her body that night. But the strange thing was, Oliver wasn't there. The next morning, animal control came by to look for the cat, but they never found him. I figured he'd run off after she died. For a few days, everything went back to normal. Then, the noises started. Soft scratching at my door, just after midnight. At first, I thought it was my imagination. Maybe I was half asleep. But the next night, it came again, louder this time. When I finally looked through the peephole, my blood ran cold. Oliver was sitting there. He looked wrong. His fur was patchy, matted, his eyes glowed faintly in the dim hallway light. And he wasn't scratching the door randomly. He was tracing shapes, letters. When I turned on the hall light, he bolted. I opened the door, but there was nothing there. just faint marks on the wood, shaped like letters. H-E-L-P. That night I dreamed about Mrs. Grayson. She was sitting in her chair, eyes open, whispering something I couldn't hear. And her lap was Oliver, staring straight at me. When I woke up, I could still hear the scratching. I turned toward the sound, the window this time, and froze. Oliver was on the other side of the glass, standing perfectly still in the pouring rain. And behind him, through the reflection, I could see someone standing inside my apartment. I whipped around. Nothing. The room was empty. But on the glass, where Oliver had been, were fresh streaks from his paws, 5 long scratches that looked deliberate, almost like a warning. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things. Stress, lack of sleep. But that same week, a new tenant moved into 2B. And the first night she moved in, I heard the scratching again. This time from her door. When I looked through my peephole, I saw Oliver sitting there. He turned, looked straight at me, and made a sound I'll never forget. A low, guttural growl that didn't sound like a cat at all. Then he bolted down the hall, vanishing around the corner. The next morning, the new tenant knocked on my door. Her eyes were wide, her hands shaking. She said, "Do you know anything about the woman who lived here before me?" I hesitated. "A little. Why?" She looked over her shoulder and whispered, "Because last night I woke up to someone whispering my name." My blood ran cold. And when I turned on the light, there was a gray cat sitting on my dresser. I don't have a cat. That was 3 months ago. The new tenant moved out after a week. No one's lived in 2B since. But sometimes, when I walk past that door at night, I still hear it. Soft scratching, a faint meow. And sometimes, when I look down the hall, I see a gray cat just sitting there in the dark, watching.